Well, hello, my name is Mike Butcher. I'm editor-at-large for TechCrunch. TechCrunch started in 2005 as a blog to write about startups coming out of Silicon Valley. And today, 15 or 16, 17 years later, it's a breaking news website with about 50 staff, with about 22 million readers. And I cover largely European startups and VCs. And I've been doing it for 15 years on TechCrunch.
And what do you think about Infoshare and startups that are here?
I think Infoshare is a really interesting show. It's more like a trade show, really, for big tech companies, but there is a startup element to it. And so it's clearly a big show for the whole of the sort of technology industry and wider IT industries to get together in Poland. So every country needs one.
Okay, do you have now your favorite startup that presented here, or?
I've literally just been really just landed just to sort of check out, so I haven't got a favourite startup or anything right now. My impression of the Polish tech scene is that it's much better than it was, say, about 5 years ago, where you didn't really have many VCs in the ecosystems, and now you've got much more of a proliferation of VCs, both in Gdansk, in Warsaw, etc., and that's really helping the ecosystem develop.
So do you think is Poland a good place to start, for example, some new technology startups?
Poland's a fantastic place to do startups. But it does tend to be, you are Polish and you're doing a startup from Poland. As far as I can tell, it tends not to attract that many international entrepreneurs. But then again, that's obvious because it's a big country in its own right, 40 million people. So that's totally fine. And it has enormous amounts of internal talent that it can draw on. The question that for Polish startups is often, do I continue to serve my Polish ecosystem, or do I try and go international? Because it's so alluring and an obvious thing to do to just serve a Polish market, that can often limit sometimes a Polish startup just to doing that rather than thinking internationally. Of course, there are plenty of breakout startups and tech companies that have gone international out of Poland, of course. But that tends to be one of those kind of choices that startups here have to make.
How to bring the startup on the international level?
I think it's much easier if you if you're thinking from international from the day one, rather than thinking I'm going to do the Polish market first and then do international, because probably what's going to happen is you're going to build just that market. If you think for an international market from day one, it's going to be easier for you to go international, go to very, very large markets like the US or Asia later on, rather than just starting in Poland.
And what's the best country for now to start with new technology startup?
There's no real one best country now, because because post-pandemic people work from anywhere now. These days it's really a talent war between countries to attract the best talent to their shores, or the companies to locate and put down use it as their main jurisdiction for their company. So now the war is both for talent, but also for the most startup friendly policies by those countries. What are can you do options? Can you distribute options easily to staff? Can you raise money in that country? Those kinds of issues. Because now the post-pandemic, people move around a great deal now.
So what was the impact of the pandemic on the startups?
Well, I think that those startups that were set up to work remotely from day one were at a huge advantage. Startups which insisted everyone be in the office every day suddenly had to work out how to be remote. So that was a cultural flip which people needed to work out quite quickly. And now people kind of expect that now. Even if you have an office now, people don't really want to go into an office every day anyway. They want to go, even if if there is an office, you want to work in a hybrid sense. So that's been the culture change, I think.
What are the first steps if I want to make a successful startup?
I think obviously come up with an idea that's original, ideally, but also look for the gaps in the market, or see where somebody's doing something and realise that you can do it better. The main things with startups are talent, so getting the right people around you, and funding, so money. So knowing investors, being able in contact with them, having their, being able to sort of talk to them when you've got some traction, those are the two most important things.
Isn't it a little bit harder to find fundings?
These days, it's not harder to find funding. There's more funding than there's ever been. The question is, the funding is more discerning now because valuations have been hit because of the global macroeconomic situation. So now investors aren't just looking for companies that are growing, they're also looking for companies that are both growing and have a business model and maybe revenues and customers.